And welcome everybody to the Huddle on K9 streaming platforms. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
Good, good, ready to go.
All right. Well, one place to start for sure is this University of Arizona men's basketball team, which has just continued to impress and surprise on the upside all season long. And now here we are, third week or so of February, and they're ranked second in the country. And Pat, this team 1 week from tonight could be clinching the Pac-12 regular season championship. Could even happen sooner. They could get a share this weekend. But you take a look, and here they are, 14-1 with a sparkling 24-2 record overall, 2.5 games ahead of both USC and UCLA.
Yeah, and it's been impressive, Jason, in the sense that most teams in conference play, doesn't matter what Power Five conference you're talking about, when they go on the road, they tend to struggle and they'll lose a game or two to teams maybe you wouldn't think that they would lose to, except on the road. It's kind of the great equalizer. We've seen it on the men's side. We'll talk about, or on the women's side. We'll talk about the women in just a moment. On the men's side, they've seemed to been able to handle the pressure of winning at home and on the road, and the pressure of winning at home in the sense that you're supposed to win, you're supposed to take care of business. They did that against Oregon. It was hard fought, but impressive the way they were able to do it. But they've been able to do it on the road, and now this week they'll head out to the Rocky Mountain schools and get a test from Utah. But I think it's a test that they can pass.
Yeah, they win close games, they win blowouts, they win games in which the other team tries to slow them down at a fast pace. That could just goes to their strength, so they can win several different ways. Undefeated at McKale Center. The two losses aren't even bad losses. Both to good teams, both in tough environments. One was a really hostile crowd. Another was a situation where they were tired, third road game in a week. Is this year the men's finally wins the second national championship? Maria, I think it can be. And what's funny is that sometimes things happen when you don't think they're going to, and sometimes when you think, oh, this is the year, this is the team, it actually doesn't work out. But nobody thought going into this year that they were going to be competing for a national championship. Pat and I were just here, on this sportscast, talking about 21-11, maybe building towards next year. And this is a now team with an NBA lottery pick. Everybody's talking about Ben Mathurin as Pac-12 Player of the Year. I think Pat Azuolas Tubelis should have his name just as much in consideration as Mathurin, the way he's played this year for this team.
Yeah, and I'll agree. I think this team has a chance finally to, after 25 years. Can you believe, Jason? That'll be a topic for another day. That it's been 25 years for not only Arizona basketball but the Pac-12 to win a national championship.
It'll be a topic for our other digital special.
Yes, exactly.
No kidding.
And when it comes to this team, I think you're right. I think there can be an argument made that Azuolas Tubelis, if you're going to pick an MVP of the team, maybe Azuolas Tubelis is the MVP of the team. But I'll make the argument that in the last 4 games, each game he scored over 20 points. That during this stretch, as other teams are getting better and you've got to get better, I think Ben Mathurin has gotten better. And I think that's why Ben Mathurin is getting a little bit more publicity nationally and getting a little more talk across the conferences as maybe a player of the year. Heck, he won. Yesterday he won his 3rd Pac-12 Player of the Week honor. And, that doesn't happen very often, Jason, that a guy can dominate the award like that. And, other Azuolas Tubelis has won it before. I think they may have 5 times they've won it this year. And so, I think that you're right. You could make a lot of argument that Azuolas Tubelis is in the running, should have his name mentioned. I hope it doesn't split the vote. You know what I mean? I hope that.
I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't either, but I hope that isn't what it comes down to. I hope that one of them gets it, and my guess is that because of even the preseason discussion about Ben Mathurin being one of the, if not the top player in the league, now he's playing like one of the top players, if not the top player in the league, that he'll probably wind up with it.
What did you make of ESPN getting some booze coming here on a college game day Saturday morning? Seth Greenberg made these comments, 4 years ago about how Sean Miller shouldn't coach again or whatever. And there's definitely a feeling that there's an East Coast bias towards ESPN and their love of Duke and Dick Vitale, who's having to take the season off for health reasons. but not 100% warm welcome for ESPN Saturday morning. I thought we'd hear a little bit of jeers, maybe the first time, but then it would kind of peter out. Your thoughts on ESPN getting some boos, and Seth Greenberg really kind of, I wouldn't say he was accosted on the way to the arena, but he was definitely approached by someone who was asked if he was going to apologize. I didn't think they were expecting that.
Well, they should have, because you know what happens is, Jason, it's human nature, right? Yes, we've all kind of turned the page because this team has been so good. It's enabled us to kind of move past what had been happening and the cloud that's over the program, even though that cloud is still a little bit over the program. But I think you can move on, but you're not always going to forget, and you're not going to forget those who you feel like said some disparaging things about you, whether they're right or wrong. You know, and in some ways, some of those comments from ESPN may have been accurate, or at least close to being accurate. Some of them may have been a little too far. Some of them may have been some oh, I know they're dirty, I know this is that, when in actuality we don't know anything quite yet. We don't know 100% yet. Neither does anybody from ESPN. So maybe that's where it's coming from, Jason, is there were some bold statements made, some strong opinions put out there by some of the ESPN analysts 4 years ago that have not been 100% proven accurate. And I think that it's only human nature that you're going to remember those as you turn the page. But and back to your other point, it's a 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock game, or what time did that game start? Was it 8 o'clock?
8 p.m.
It,
8 p.m. 9
so it's
a.m. was
10
college
o'clock.
game
It's
day.
10 o'clock on the East Coast. People aren't paying attention. That's the other part of that East Coast bias, I think, that you feel out west. Do we overblow it a little bit sometimes? Maybe, but there's some evidence that starts to build up, or you can make an argument anyway that that a guy like a Jay Billis that finally comes out here to see Arizona play and finally gets to see the atmosphere of what it is like now. It's been a while, and maybe they got a little tutoring about what it's like to play in the Pac-12 and play at McHale Center again.
Yeah, Mikhail, both teams undefeated, men and women. You do hold your breath a little bit, Pat, with the men's team. It's only an 8-man rotation. If one of those big guys got hurt, or one of the starters got hurt, it's a different team. So we hold our breath and knock on wood on that. But in the meantime, we did see that with the women's team this past week. And boy, you thought that was season ending when Kate Reese dislocated her shoulder. Apparently, they popped it right back in place like in Lethal Weapon, the movie, when Mel Gibson's character does that. And Adia Barnes says she may not be lost for the season. They could even have her back for the Pac-12 tournament. And especially what makes that tough is that the player who would take her position, Araya Copeland, who Adia has described as like a walking bucket and kind of a starter, she's been out with migraines. So while Lauren Ware is a terrific post defender, she's not the offensive player that Kate Reese is. And Kate Reese has this passion and intangibles that not only is she the leading scorer, averaging somewhere around 16 points a game, that when you take that off the court, they are not the same team. There's no way they're a Final Four team without Kate Reese. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And that's a
yeah.
huge loss. And boy, if they can kind of hold serve for a couple of games, because you can ride that momentum wave. Oh, we're playing. We all got to step up for Kate Reese. Anybody can do that for a game or two. You can't do that for the rest of the season. This team has got to get Kate Reese back. She put a nice little note on Twitter that she thinks she's going to be okay. So let's hope she comes back, because that's just an incalculable loss if she's out for the year.
Yeah, and all indications are there was no structural damage, there's no tears, there's no break. It's a dislocated shoulder. It was so painful to watch her in that agony, and I felt for her. Yeah, Adia Barnes even said she, all her years of playing and then coaching, she'd never really witnessed anything like that, and it really took her aback. And it kind of, she had to kind of, muster up the energy to console Kate as she's going through that agony. The good news is it seems like she's going to be back sooner rather than later. But you're right. A couple of games here at the end of the regular season. They have 2 final games at home this week. They go to the Pac-12 tournament. They're going to need her in the Pac-12 tournament too, Jason. They've got to win a game or two in that Pac-12 tournament. They can't, to be one of those top 16 teams right now. They're sitting at net ranking 13 because of that loss at Washington
We were taking
State.
that for granted that they were going to play 2 games in McHale and open the tournament.
Because they were better
anymore.
Yeah, you can't take that for granted. So they need to get some wins. And I think you're right. I think there are some competent, capable people to fill in for a game or two in a end of regular season scenario. into the Pac-12 tournament, into the NCAA tournament. She has so much. You mentioned use the word intangibles. Knowledge, strength, size, skill. She's such a skilled athlete for her size. And I just think that in a lot of ways, she has become so much of a big part of that team. They really need her back. I expect her to be back. I can't believe that if she's, close to 100%, she's not going to be back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so hope for a speedy recovery for Kate Reese. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Here we are on the Huddle KGUN 9 streaming platform. All right, we're going to talk. We're going to have some fun here for our remainder of time, and for anybody watching, please write in with your opinion if you want on the
Yes.
whole Juwan Howard situation and the handshake line. All right, so let's just quick little recap here. Juwan Howard, the Michigan coach, is in the handshake line. And I thought that he did not set out to do this, but he was kind of approached by the Wisconsin coach and who kind of tugged at him a little bit. And then things kind of got heated. Obviously, Juwan Howard's in the wrong. Nobody's going to debate that. You could debate you could debate about how much he should be suspended for. That's fine. But Pat, you know what? I don't think you need a handshake line at the end of the game. I mean, these games can be very heated. I think I like the way it is in the NFL. You know what? If your buddy's on the other side and you want to go shake his hand, fine. But you shouldn't be forced to have some fake handshake with the other team when in a game that can get physical. So I am of the camp that I think we can do away with this handshake line. What's your thought on that? And then before, I want to get your thought first, and then we're going to hear from Tom Izzo. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll hear from. I'll leave some of my comments till after we hear from Tom Izzo. But I'll say this, Jason. How many times have we had an incident in the handshake line in college basketball this year before Juwan Howard? None.
We've seen little ones in small colleges. We haven't seen big ones.
Right. It's not an issue. It really isn't an issue. I'll say this about Juwan Howard. 5-game suspension. It turns out to be the rest of the regular season. That's fine. I know some people were calling for him to be fired. I thought that was way over the top. It was not. He set a horribly bad example. I really appreciated his comments and his statement yesterday, fully taking responsibility for it, saying he crossed the line, shouldn't happen, won't happen again. It better not happen again. If it doesn't happen again, then this will just be one of those footnotes at the bottom of his Wikipedia page. But for Juwan Howard, here's what nobody's talking about, Jason, that really I think you have to put this in context of why the Wisconsin coach stopped and said something as they were going by each other. Now, we don't know if Juwan Howard may have said something as they were approaching each other, but here's what nobody's talking about. No, and you will be surprised at this. I know you will, because everybody else is. Juwan Howard and Michigan were down anywhere from 14 to 17 points in the final 50 seconds of that game. Guess what they were doing after they made baskets? They were pressing. They were pressing.
Yeah, no, that's what talked about.
The scrubs of the Wisconsin team. No, nobody's talking about that.
No,
nobody's talking.
No, that was discussed.
Absolutely, nobody's talking about that, Jason. You may have said somebody mentioned on SportsCenter or something. Nobody's talking about that. That is low budget. That is just as bad as calling timeouts.
But that's why the Wisconsin coach called the timeout.
Right, but nobody talks about that. They only talk about the fact that he called timeout. How disrespectful is that? Why is Juwan Howard having his team full court press Wisconsin scrubs in a game where they're down 17 points? So don't tell me that Juwan Howard's mad that they called timeouts because he's trying to rub it in. Well, what's Juwan Howard doing? He's working on something. So is it the Wisconsin coach's fault that he calls timeout because they were getting trapped and the shot clock was down to 4 seconds? So he wanted to reset the shot clock. My point is,
Juwan Howard's wrong. Nobody's disagreeing with that.
But Juwan Howard being mad at Wisconsin is way off board, way overboard, way off the mark. And nobody's talking about that part of it. They're just talking about Juwan Howard's reaction to the Wisconsin coach. Juwan Howard had no business saying anything to the Wisconsin coach either. Wisconsin's coach was mad because he was pressing his scrubs. And everybody's like glossing over that. That's my point. They're glossing over that point to just talk about how Juwan Howard was accosted by the Wisconsin coaches verbally. That's not what happened. They were upset too. Both sides were upset.
And also, there is a difference between an open hand slap and a closed hand fist.
Oh, there's no doubt. If he punched him with a closed fist right in the face instead of the little push to the side, then he's gone. He's gone.
Okay. All right. So here's Michigan State coach Tom Izzo being asked if the handshake lie needs to be done away with. He got pretty animated. Pat, let's play this
Already
video
told
and hear
these
what you have to
kids
say.
that it's hard to hold them accountable, and now we're going to tell them to not man up and walk down a line on someone who's kicked your butt and have enough class to shake their hand is utterly ridiculous. So if the president said it, I think he's full of it. If the best coach in America said it, I think that gets me way more than this incident.
All right. So obviously he's pretty old school there and thinks there should be a handshake line. I don't think we need to have a handshake line. I think it can be optional and let them do it on their own as they see fit. We don't need any type of fake congratulatory at the end. But I think you feel differently.
Yeah, I do. I really, I'm old school. I may not be as old school as Tom Izzo, but I'm pretty old school when it comes to that. I think that it is a tradition in college basketball. You mentioned how in the NFL, well, if you got buddies on the team, most every team in a conference, you got buddies on that team. In fact, nowadays with the transfer portal, you got former teammates that are on that team. So I think there is a reason why this handshake line is going to take place. I think that in rare circumstances like what happened with Michigan at Wisconsin, you have some really bad blood that boils over. And I get it. And I guess, I'll say this, the whole thing with Oregon and Arizona women's basketball, that was kind of at the end of the game, although they're not doing the handshake line right now. They just kind of did the wave, right? And that's where that all started. Or am I wrong? I thought they were just kind of doing the wave at the end of the bench kind of thing, and that kind of got out of hand.
I never thought about the handshake line until now. Where it's most known in sports
Well, it
is
is,
in
and
ice hockey.
what
It's
it's
in ice
really,
hockey
yeah.
at
I
the
was
end
just
of a
going to say
playoff
in the
series.
NHL at the
At,
end of the playoff series. So once
that's
you're
right.
done
At
with
the
the
end of the
series,
series,
that's when that's where that real that tradition really got going, I think. And I
yeah.
think that's the you know what, we can battle each other tooth and nail until there's blood on the ice and we're just exhausted, but at the end we're going to put it all behind us. We're going to shake hands. To the victor go the spoils. They get to go off onto the next round of the playoffs, or they get to hoist the Stanley Cup, but we're all going to go, and we're going to be friends after this. And I think that's kind of that's the mentality behind the handshake line in basketball is, we really went after it. We had a great game, good game, good game, good game. And that's really all you're doing is good game, unless it's a buddy of yours, and then you might stop and talk.
I don't want to shake
I
20
don't,
sweaty guys' hands after a game, Pat.
I'm
Come
for,
on.
I'm for it.
That's
You're
not
against it. Yeah.
necessary. Huh?
Well, maybe we should try that after the newscast. We'll just
I'd
shake
rather
each
just
other's
go
hand.
find my buddy on the other team and have a good short conversation.
All
That's
right.
it. I don't want to shake
Well,
20 guys' sweaty hands.
I think we're going to disagree on that one. I don't want to see it. I don't. Let's put it this way: if that's something they want to talk about, and we have more incidents, but over one incident, I'm with Izzo on that. With Tom Izzo, he says, if presidents are talking about that just after the one incident, I'm more upset about that than what. That's what Izzo says. I'm not. But I would say this: don't let one incident end what has been a pretty good tradition throughout the history of college basketball.
That's a fair point. All right, we'll end on that. Pat,
Hey, we got to say one thing.
what's that?
Arizona baseball, you're going to be out there tonight. Their home opener. They're up to number 11, 3-0. And Arizona softball 7-2, right where they're supposed to be. I think what they're ranked like number 10.
Yeah.
So we got those sports to get ready for and to look forward to as well. And they're off and running. I love what the baseball team looks like already.
3 Big 12 wins to start the year in Texas. The
Right.
offense looks terrific. And the guys who didn't get a chance last year all hit this past weekend. Tanner Otremba had 2 home runs. Noah Turley hit a home run. Because I was a little concerned that they lost Jacob Berry, the first baseman who left to go be with Jay Johnson at LSU. But I tell you what, Chip Hale wasn't concerned when I asked him about it. He said, "We got a great roster." And it looks like he's right so far. So we'll see. We'll see about the pitching. But the offense looks good. And tonight they host Grand Canyon, who, if you remember, they actually played in the Tucson Regional before they went to the Super Regional.
That's right.
And then the College World Series.
I love the newspaper. I'll give them kudos. The newspaper did a story about their using all the electronics and the metrics and all that. And I think that the one thing that Chip Hale has knowledge of, and that is this new kind of major league era that we're in, that they're now slowly integrating into college, but he's fast tracking this whole idea in college. Sure, your eyes are still the number one test, right, for a manager or for a head coach, but they have to use so much of the cameras and the spin rate velocities and the movement of the pitches, and they've got all the U of A, and Dave Hickey, to his credit, has spent all the money. They've got all this stuff. Not all the schools have it. In fact, most of them don't. They'll have a competitive advantage right now, and they need to take advantage of it right away.
I like analytics, but at the same time, I always remember what Joe Torre said: baseball has a heartbeat.
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
still gonna want a coach or a manager to use a hunch
Yeah.
at the right time.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody's just not feeling well that day. That's not
Right.
that's not in the analytics
That's
part.
it.
There's a
That's
place for
true.
analytics, but there's a place for
Yeah.
common sense too. So
But
you gotta
I'll say this,
you
and I
gotta use
agree
both.
with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. As all my days covering Major League Baseball, I can tell you I felt the same way. But if you have those analytics and all the computers and the cameras, you need to use that too. And the U of A wisely jumped on this bandwagon early, and I think they're gonna. I think it's gonna show, if it hasn't already shown good results, and it's gonna help them I believe make it back to the College World Series and have another shot again this year.
All right, terrific. Pat Parris, thanks so much.
Thanks,
I'm
Jason.
Jason Barr. Yep, this has been K-Gun, the Huddle on K-Gun 9 streaming service, streaming platform, and all our different channels. You know which ones they are. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday at 3 o'clock our time. Thanks, everybody.